What's up, dude Papichong? It's me again, Ron, your friendly certified poging public accountant. In this first video of a two-part mini-series, I'm going to discuss adjusting entries, what they are, and why you need them. Adjusting entries can be defined as the entries which you prepare at the end of each accounting period to make the books in alignment with the accrual basis of accounting. These are divided into two categories, dude Papichong, no? Yung tinatawag na accruals and the deferrals, and can further be subdivided into four, no? Namely, yung accrued expenses, accrued revenue, deferred expenses, and deferred revenue. Doon pa lang, no, dude Papichong, I already have to explain several concepts to you para ma-appreciate mo ang adjusting entries. Namely, the periodicity concept, yung going concern assumption, accrual basis of accounting, revenue and expense recognition principles, matching principle, systematic and rational allocation, etc. Ang komplikado ba, dude Papichong? Well, basically, yes, no? Adjusting entries is a killer topic, especially for new accounting students. Kaya naman, para maintindihan mo ang topic na to, I'm going to show you the big picture, no? And then we will go down to the specifics of each adjusting entries. This will remind you, dude Papichong, kung bakit accounting heist ang title ng series na to, no? Dahil talagang mapapa-heist ka na lang sa hirap ng accounting. Again, my name is Ron, and welcome to Accounting Heist Episode 6. Sabi ko kanina, adjusting entries can be defined as the entries which you prepare at the end of each accounting period to make the books in alignment with the accrual basis of accounting. May dalawang importanteng concept na nabanggit doon, dude Papichong, that we have to discuss first para magets mo ang adjusting entries. First, what is an accounting period? In accounting, dude Papichong, there is this so-called going concern assumption. Ang ibig sabihin nito, dude Papichong, ang isang accounting entity ay ina-assume na magpapatuloy sa operasyon for the indefinite future. Ibig sabihin, dude Papichong, may forever sa accounting. Mahalaga ang assumption na to sa accounting, dude Papichong, and later it will make sense to you when I discuss the specifics of adjusting entries. So, ibig sabihin ba nun, sir, magjo-journal na lang ako habang buhay? Magre-record ako ng transaction ng walang katapusan? Diyan naman papasok si accounting period. Kung babalikan mo ang definition ng accounting, especially the one given by the Accounting Standards Council, accounting is a service activity, the function of which is to provide quantitative information, primarily financial in nature, about economic entities that is intended to be useful in making economic decisions. Ibig sabihin, dude Papichong, the management needs relevant information as basis, no, in making business decisions. Ano ba yung relevant? Para madali mong magets ang relevant and timely information. So kunwari nakita mo yung crush mo sa kantin, no, dude Papichong, kumakain siya mag-isa. At dahil mag-isa siya, naisip mo, chance mo na to make a move, no, dude Papichong, diba? Opportunity mo na to. So naglakad ka papalapit sa kanya at ang sabi mo, "Hi, can I join you?" Tapos narinig mo, dude Papichong, no, yung best friend mo, no, sumisigaw sa malayo,
"Pare, ilag!"
Kaso, dude Papichong, nung narinig mo siya, no, may black eye ka na, no? Bakit? Kasi nasa likod mo pala ang boyfriend ng crush mo, no? Taken na pala siya. Now, kung alam mo ba na taken na siya, lalapit ka, malamang, dude Papichong, hindi, di ba? In that case, that piece of information was relevant to your decision making. Dahil kung alam mo ang impormasyon na yon, mag-iiba ang desisyon mo. Now, yun bang sinabi ng best friend mo na umilag ka, is it relevant in that situation? Yes. Kung alam mo lang na may parating na black eye, malamang iilag ka, diba? Kaso, dude Papichong, late yung sigaw ng kaibigan mo, kaya hindi ka nakailag. In this case, hindi timely ang information, alright? Gets ba yun? Ibig sabihin, dude Papichong, para maging relevant ang information, may impact ito sa decision making mo at dapat napapanahon, no? Or, in other words, timely. Now, in relation to a business organization, kailangan ng management ng timely information para makagawa sila ng informed decision. Informed decision meaning hindi ka blinded at meron kang basihan sa paggawa ng desisyon mo. Hindi ka nanghuhula o tsumatsamba dud pare chong. Sabi natin we assume na ang isang organization ay magtatagal forever under the going concern assumption. Pero dahil kailangan ng management ng magagamit na impormasyon on a timely basis para magamit sa pagdedesisyon, the indefinite life of an entity is divided into intervals called the accounting period. Ito ang dahilan pare chong kung bakit we report financial position at every year end while we report income statement, changes in owner's equity, and cash flows for a covered period because these are the reports containing the relevant and timely information that the management will use to make decisions. The most common accounting period of course is annual or in other words yearly pare chong, which can either be fiscal year or calendar year. Ngayon, nasagot na natin kung ano ang accounting period. Ano naman yung tinatawag na accrual basis of accounting? Ibig sabihin lang nito pare chong, ang transaksyon ay dapat i-record as revenue or expense kung kailan ito nangyari regardless kung kailan nangyari ang related na koleksyon at bayaran. Nakaka-confuse ba pare chong? Bakit ba hindi na lang tayo mag-cash basis? Bakit kapag nakakolekta ka ng cash, hindi mo na lang i-record directly as revenue or kapag nagbayad ka, i-record mo na agad as expense? Now, ipapakita ko sa iyo kung ano ang mangyayari kapag ginamit natin ang cash flow basis. Lagyan natin ng example. Si Brainwash Laundromat ulit ang example natin, So, si Brainwash Laundromat for instance ay na-establish ng December 1, 2020. So, syempre, bago ka mag-operate pare chong, you need to have all the things you will need like the machine, sabon, gloves, magtatayo ka ng pwesto mo, etc. Right? So, on December 1, 2020 pare chong, you paid for the following. Supplies like soap, disposable gloves, fabric conditioner. So, ito is worth 50,000 pesos, So, nag-add to cart ka ng nag-add to cart. Shopping galore. Tapos, nagpa-install ka rin ng mga washing machine. At yung washing machine, it costs 350,000 pesos which, according to the manufacturer, the washing machine can last up to 5 years or 60 months, After which, you can sell the washing machines for 50,000 pesos. In addition, nagpa-install ka rin ng fixtures, LED lights. Para maganda yung pwesto mo, Pag walang customer, pwede kang mag-TikTok worth 10,000 pesos. Tapos, dahil umuupa ka lang ng pwesto, nagbayad ka ng renta at ang gusto ng landlord, 1 year advance. So, nagbayad ka ng 24,000 pare chong dahil 2,000 pesos ang monthly rent, Now, if cash basis ang gagamitin natin, all of this will be recorded as expenses under the month of December 2020. So ngayon, nag-start ka ng operations, meaning tumanggap ka ng customer, January 15, 2021. At dahil nag-uumpisa ka pa lang, ang mga naging customer mo, usually mga kaibigan mo, So meron kang 100 friends dahil famous ka at ang singil mo sa kanila, 1,000 pesos each. So that is a total of 100,000 pesos. Pero dahil close kayo, ang bayad daw sa laundry pare chong sa susunod na buwan na, February na daw pare chong. So, ibig sabihin, nag-provide ka ng service ng January at dahil nag-provide ka ng service, gumamit ka ng tubig, ginamit mo yung machine, gumamit ka ng sabon, gumamit ka ng kuryente, pero nakatanggap ka ng bayad for your services, February na. So, in this case, nakolekta natin ang bayad noong February 15 and therefore the revenue will be under February, not January. Now, dahil nag-operate ka na noong January, gumamit ka na ng kuryente at tubig. Na-receive mo ang bill mo ng kuryente at tubig noong February 10 for the cut-off January 5 to February 5 na nagkakahalaga na 15,000 pesos. Sa totoong buhay, pare chong, hindi talaga yan sakto Wag kang mangarap. Hindi yan saktong January 1 to January 31 para maging simple ang pagko-compute mo. So, syempre, para hindi tayo maputulan, nagbayad na tayo kaagad ng kuryente at tubig ng February 10. Ngayon, nakikita mo na ba ang problema pare chong kapag ginamit natin ang cash basis in terms of measuring the performance or profit or loss, lalabas na mayroon tayong loss for the month of December assuming na monthly ang accounting period natin, No, tama lang dahil small business lang naman do. At the same time, lalabas na for the month of January, wala tayong income or expense. Wala tayong transaction at all. Lastly, it will show us that we have net income of 85,000 for the month of February. Hindi mo makita kung ano ang mali dito? Let me enlighten you, Dud Parechong. In accrual basis of accounting, meron tayong tinatawag na matching principle. Ano naman yung matching principle? Ang sinasabi lang sa matching principle, Dud Parechong, para magkaroon ka ng income, it is only but logical that you have made related expenses. Ibig sabihin, hindi ka pwede magkaroon ng income nang hindi ka gumagastos, Dud Parechong. Laging magkasama ang income at ang expense. For instance, sa example natin, nag-provide ka ng service ng January and therefore, hindi ka pwede maglaba, Dud Parechong, nang wala kang gamit na tubig, kuryente at sabon. As you can see in our example, dahil naka-expense na ang sabon at machinery ng December pa lang, ang expense na lang na nakamatch sa revenue ng February ay kuryente at tubig. Ibig sabihin, in terms of measuring the performance of the business, hindi holistic ang information na nakuha mo regarding the profitability of your business dahil hindi mo ma-match ang lahat ng expenses na talaga namang ginagamit mo to earn your revenue. Moreover, dahil lahat ng cash outflows mo noong December ay tinreat mo as expense, lumalabas na wala ka ng supplies at wala ka ng machinery as early as December. Whereas in fact, nagamit mo pa ang supplies and machineries noong naglaba ka ng January. Now, let's go back to the question. Ano ba ang tinatawag na accrual basis of accounting? Simple lang, you recognize revenue when income is realized or earned and not necessarily when cash is received, and you recognize expense in the same time that you recognize the related revenue, not necessarily when cash is paid. Sir, ang hirap naman yan, cash basis na lang. Hindi pwede, Dud Parechong. Bakit? Sa accounting, meron tayong tinatawag na accounting standards, which are like a set of rules and guidelines to ensure consistency of presentation of the financial statements across different organizations. Now, one of these standards is the PAS1 titled Presentation of the Financial Statements, which requires that the financial statements except for cash flows should be prepared in accordance with the accrual basis of accounting. Ibig sabihin, Dud Parechong, required by standards, meaning wala tayong choice. Sir, ang topic natin is adjusting entries. Bakit accounting period at accrual basis ang dinidiscuss mo? Dud Parechong, ini-explain ko sa'yo kung bakit tayo nag-a-adjusting entries. Dapat alam mo ang theory behind kung bakit natin to kailangan. Huwag lang compute ng compute at entry ng entry. Ngayon, balikan natin yung sinabi ko sa intro. Adjusting entries can be defined as the entries which you prepare at the end of each accounting period to make the books in alignment with the accrual basis of accounting. These are divided into two categories, Dud Parechong, no? Yung tinatawag na accruals and the deferrals, and can further be subdivided into four, no? Namely, yung accrued expenses, accrued revenue, deferred expenses, and deferred revenue. Now, ano ba ang accruals and deferrals? Simulan natin sa deferrals, Dud Parechong. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng deferral or from the root word defer? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, defer means to postpone, suspend, or to delay an action or proceeding. Defer implies deliberate putting off to a later time. Ibig sabihin, Dud Parechong, sinasadya mong i-delay. Ang alin? Ang recognition or treatment ng isang transaction as either income or expense. Ibig sabihin, for instance, Dud Parechong, no? Ang cash inflow ay dinidelay mo ang pag-recognize as income at ang cash outflow ay dinidelay mo ang pag-recognize as expense. Kung delayed ang recognition as income or expense, ibig sabihin, nauna ang related cash flow. Malinaw ba yon? So sir, dinelay mo, ibig sabihin ba nun hindi mo muna i-record? Ang sabi ko, Dud Parechong, you delay the recognition as income or expense. Hindi ko sinabing wag i-record. I-record mo pa rin ang transaction pero hindi as income or expense. Sir, kung hindi income or expense, paano ko i-record? For a deferred income, you recognize it initially as a liability, while for deferred expense, you recognize initially as an asset. Alam ko na ang next question mo. Bakit liability at bakit asset? First, for the deferral of revenue. Sabi nga natin kapag may deferral, nauuna ang cash flow. So in this case, you already collected cash or consideration. Ibig sabihin, the moment you have received that cash, you have the obligation to perform services in exchange for the collection of that cash. You have the obligation to perform services or deliver goods in the future. Kaya siya nire-record as a liability. You have the obligation to perform services or deliver goods in the future. Kaya mo siya nire-record as a liability. So in this case, the entry will include a credit to unearned revenue, unearned income, deferred revenue. Yan yung mga usual titles na ginagamit. So lagyan natin ng example para magets mo. So for example, ang business mo is car rental at may nag-rent sa'yo ng car at nagbayad ang customer ng cash worth 100,000 on January 1, 2020 para rentahan ang kotse mo for 10 months. Ibig sabihin, gagamitin niya yung sasakyan mo for 10 months, Usong-uso ngayon, lalo dahil walang public transport gawa ng COVID. Ibig sabihin, on January 1, 2020, you will record the transaction as a debit to cash for 100,000 and credit to unearned revenue also for 100,000. Now, every month end, as you actually lease the car to the customer, habang ginagamit niya yung sasakyan kada buwan, you can already record the revenue for each succeeding month. Thus, 100,000 divided by 10 months, which is yun yung napag-usapan nyo, diba? So, you will debit unearned revenue and credit to revenue for 10,000. Ibig sabihin, ililipat mo lang, from unearned income to earned income. You are, in effect, reclassifying from liability account to income account. Ganyan ang magiging adjusting entry mo every month. As you can see, you are now allocating the 100,000 collection as revenue across different accounting periods. Ngayon naman, similar lang din ang concept for the deferred expense. It is simply delaying the recognition of expense para mag-match with the related revenue that such expense produces. Now, kung aaralin mo ang expense recognition principle, there are 3 ways to match an expense to the related revenue. One of that is the systematic and rational allocation. Ang systematic and rational allocation ay ginagamit kapag hindi mo ma-associate directly ang cause and effect relationship between the expense and the income. Pero at the same time, hindi mo naman siya pwedeng i-expense totally because it will benefit the use of future accounting periods. Isang magandang example nito ay ang property, plant, and equipment, or in other words, yung mga asset na dinidepreciate. Kung ang negosyo mo for instance ay pagbebenta ng couple shirt, madaling i-relate ang puhunan ng t-shirt or in accounting terms, your cost of sales against your t-shirt sales. Pero in the case, for example, of the cost of the machine na ginamit mo to produce the t-shirt, medyo may kahirapan i-proportionate or i-allocate ang cost ng equipment in relation to your sales. That's why the simplest thing you can do is to spread out the cost of such expenses across different accounting periods following a systematic approach. Ito yung tinatawag na depreciation for fixed assets. Kapag naman intangible asset, ang tawag amortization. Ito ang logic dud pare chong kung bakit ang fixed assets, property, plant and equipment, furniture and fixtures, supplies, prepaid rent, prepaid insurance, and yung iba pang similar account ay nire-record mo initially as asset. Tapos gradually nag-e-expense ka every period because you are systematically matching these costs to the revenue. Hindi ba logical lang naman dahil if you want to holistically measure the performance of your business, you would want to take into account or consider all the expenses na nagagastos mo in order to generate revenue. Now, going back to the deferred expense, para simple lang let's assume na in our previous car rental business example, your cost is car insurance. So nagbayad ka ng car insurance for 1 year costing 12,000 on January 1, 2020. So on January 1, 2020, you will initially record this payment as a debit to prepaid insurance, which is an asset account, and a credit to cash for 12,000. And then as the terms of the insurance contract is consumed every month, mag-recognize ka ng expense. In this case, 1 year or 12 months ang term ng insurance contract, and therefore, magbe-benefit ang car rental mo for 12 months. So tama lang na for each of those 12 months, may expense allocation dahil makikinabang ang rental business mo sa insurance. And the related adjusting entry for the end of each month will look like this: debit to insurance expense and credit to prepaid insurance. In effect, you are now recognizing as expense the transaction na dinefer mo or dinelay mo during the initial recording as an asset. And that, dude pare chong, is deferred income and deferred expenses. Now, ano naman ang accruals? Kung ang deferrals ay ang pag-delay ng recognition ng transactions as income or expense at pag-record initially as liability or asset, ang accrual naman ay ang pag-recognize ng transaction as income or expense even before the actual cash inflow or outflow. Para madali mong magets dun pare chong, gamitan natin ng example. Now, assuming the same car rental business, sabihin na natin your business engaged into the following transactions. On January 1, 2020, you entered into an agreement with Mr. Sheldon Wolowitz na gawing service vehicle ang sasakyan mo papunta at papasok ng office dahil takot si Sheldon sa virus. Ayaw niyang mag-commute dud pare chong. Ang sabi niya, you will provide the service for 3 months, 3 buwan dud pare chong, at saka kanya babayaran at the end of 3 months at ang napag-agrihan nyo na rate is 300,000 pesos na total package na yon for the whole 3 months. Next, dahil gusto mong mag-expand ng negosyo, umutang ka sa bangko noong January 2020 rin, no? Meron kang loan for 200,000 pesos which charges 12% annual interest payable at the end of the 1-year loan. Now, let me show you the related initial entries. Ibig sabihin ito yung unang entry. On January 1, 2020, you will record these transactions normally, no? Just like any other transaction. So for the first one, it will simply be a debit to saan? Wala. Doon pare chong, walang entry. Hindi kailangan, no? For the second transaction, it will be recorded just like a normal loan transaction. So, debit cash, credit loans payable for 200,000 pesos. Now, dito ngayon papasok ang adjusting entry. At the end of January, dahil nakapag-provide ka na ng service to Sheldon, ibig sabihin nito, you already earned that income. Meron ka ng karapatan to collect the cash from Sheldon. Sir, income na kahit wala pang cash collection? Yes, ito ang tinatawag natin na accrued income. You recognize the income even before the related cash inflow. So in this case, you will record accounts receivable and a related service revenue account for 100,000 pesos. Yung allocation lang for the first month ang i-record mo as revenue since ang napag-usapan nyo is for 3 months. Now, for the second transaction, at the end of the month, you should already recognize the interest na nag-accrue na sa account mo. Ibig sabihin nito, you already have the obligation to pay that interest even before the actual payment date. Thus, the entry will be like this. You will debit interest expense for 2,000 and credit accrued interest payable for 2,000. Bakit natin to ginagawa, Dud Pare Chong? Well, recognizing the accrued income and expense at the end of each accounting period ensures that the income and expense items are properly recognized in the correct accounting period and are accounted for completely. Now, before we end, baka na-overload ka na Dud Pare Chong sa dami ng concepts na nabanggit. So, ang gagawin natin is i-recap natin lahat into a concise mini chapter. Let's begin! In financial reporting, meron tayong tinatawag na going concern assumption wherein an entity is assumed to operate continuously for the indefinite future, and this indefinite life of an entity is divided into equal accounting or reporting periods. Now, in each accounting period, we prepare the financial statements in accordance with the accrual basis as required by the standard PAS1. Now, para maging compliant with the requirement na accrual basis na presentation ng financial statements, we delay the recognition of certain items as income and expense, and these are those that we call deferrals. Pero at the end of each accounting period, we have to prepare the adjusting journal entries to properly reclassify the items we deferred as either income or expense and accurately state the asset or liability account balances. In addition, we also have to recognize those transactions for which we already performed services or delivered goods as income. And we also have to recognize as expenses those transactions for which we already incurred even though hindi pa natin nababayaran. At ito naman, Dud Pare Chong, yung tinatawag natin na accruals. Also, ginagawa natin ng accrual accounting and accordingly the adjusting entries to ensure that the income and expenses are properly matched and recorded in the correct accounting period. And that's it for the first video in this 2-part mini-series dedicated to adjusting entries. Dude pare chong, itigil muna natin dito at baka dumudugo na ang ilong mo. Next episode, we will focus naman on the specifics of common accruals and deferrals. So stay tuned and make sure to hit the like button if you like this video. Share this video to your Facebook profile, ilagay mo sa story mo, share it to your groups, and also don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon para lagi kang updated pag may bago akong video. Also, if you have questions, suggestions, or topics you want to be discussed, feel free to comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And that's it, dude pare chong. See you next episode.